to another chat with me. Hope you all had a good week. If this has worked out all right, you should have heard the sound of an Australian magpie singing then, which is one of my favourite bird sounds here. I thought I'd talk a little bit today about differences that I found when I first came here from England, which is what a few people asked me to talk about. So I will. Probably could talk about that for more than one video. And I really can't go and talk about what it's like living in the UK now, because I don't really know. I've only visited for like a few weeks at a time in the whole 30 years since I've been here. But when I first came, the first thing I noticed when I got off the plane in Sydney was it smelt different. So I think I don't really notice that anymore, but the eucalyptus trees have such a strong influence on the air and the atmosphere that you can actually smell eucalyptus in the air, even in the city in Sydney. So there's that, and they look very different. So for the first few months it took me a while to get used to just the trees looking foreign. So most of the Australian native trees, their leaves hang down like this, instead of kind of sitting up like European leaves, and they're mostly deciduous trees. No, they're not. They're mostly deciduous trees in Europe, and they are mostly evergreen trees here. So although the gum trees, eucalyptus, they do drop their leaves, they drop them like throughout the year, in one or two at a time. So there are always leaves dropping, but there's never a massive amount of leaves. So some suburbs have lots of European trees. Oh look, it's Muffin again. Hello. So some suburbs have many deciduous trees, and they look very nice in the autumn. But on the whole, the landscape's very different. The trees are very different. They grow really fast, and they have pretty shallow roots. So, a tree will get up to what seems like full size to me in 10 or 15 years, whereas some of the trees that we have in the UK can take 60 to 100 years to get up to full size. And it's not at all unusual to come across a tree that's 200, 300, 500 years old. And in some churchyards there are yew trees which are still only a few feet tall, and they are estimated to be 800 to 1,000 years old. So that's one difference. So another difference is the bird songs. So that was why I put the magpie song on there. Hopefully I have managed to do that, or I'm going to have to edit and re-record the whole thing. Are you saying hello? Hello. So there aren't so many like sweet bird songs as there are in England. So now I'm living down here a bit further south in Sydney, and it's cooler in the winter, hotter in the summer where I live now. And there are a few European birds which are, I guess, pests in a way, in that they've displanted the native birds. So there are starlings, there are blackbirds, and there are sparrows. So the soundscape is a lot more familiar to my ears than it was in Sydney, where you hear the magpie, which I have played to you, which I actually love, and you hear lots of parrots and crows, and you see beautiful birds. On the whole, the birds are a lot more brightly coloured, and I think there are Indian ringneck parakeets now in feral populations in England, so you're probably a bit more used to hearing the squawk of parrots. But yeah, it seemed to me Australian birds on the whole kind of went wah, wah, rather than singing sweetly. But I do love them, and I do love the song of the magpie. So another thing that I noticed was a small thing, but when you're crossing at traffic lights, certainly in Sydney, and I can only really speak to New South Wales because I've never lived in another state, you get this thing where a car will get a green light to go to turn right, let's say, or left, and the pedestrians will get a green walk to walk at the same time. So if you've come from England, you're merrily walking across the walkway. You're not really looking for traffic because you're not expecting anything to come, and the cars have got the green light to come across where you're walking, so they're supposed to give way to you as they turn, but they don't always notice that there is a crossing there, or that you're on it, or that you've got the green man. So I find that really weird. So I did write down a list of things, and I think I'll have to talk about them another day because our time here is nearly up with me just talking about birds. I do love birds. I've always been very interested, and I remember when I was growing up, my grandma used to teach me about birds. So she taught me the things that different birds say, like I think it's the yellowhammer that song, and it sounds like a little bit of bread and no cheese, and she taught me different things like that. I'd say the bird I miss most from the UK is probably the robin, because it was my favourite, and it's always so nice to see in the dull, cold, dark winter with its little red breast. So there are some native Australian birds called robins. There's a pink-breasted robin, and there are a couple of different ones. They're not the same bird. And I probably should say the magpie is not the same. Oh, here comes Muffin. Yep, that's you. The magpie isn't the same as a European magpie either. It's just called a magpie because it's black and white. Anyway, I'm about to give you the rundown on today's mug. It is a Emma Bridgewater mug. It celebrates 50 years of decimalisation. It came out in 2021. I've got a few of these Emma Bridgewater mugs, and I really like them for several reasons. One, they feel lovely in the hand. Two, they're exactly the right size for dipping in a digestive biscuit. And three, they're made in Stoke-on-Trent in the old-fashioned way, and they're not made in China. Stoke-on-Trent area probably is still called the Potteries because it was where the pottery industry in the UK originated. It's where your Wedgwood, Spode, all of those potteries used to be. Or maybe Spode used to be in Worcester. Anyway, certainly Wedgwood and Royal Dalton and many others were all centred around there. And none of them produce there anymore. They've stopped doing that, I think, in the 80s. So, yeah, I really like Emma Bridgewater. I can't afford to buy her stuff under normal circumstances. I just buy them in the sale. So this one would have been $40 full price, and I got it for $10. So that's the equivalent of like somewhere around £20, and I got it for $5. So I'm happy with a £5 mug. It's got calculations, pre-decimal calculations on the back, what we used to have to do in school. So I can't do these anymore, but for example, £2 6 and 4 pence divided by 4 equals whatever, 4 shillings 6 pence halfpenny times 9. So going decimal made it a lot easier. Anyway, that's that for now. I've got lots of things to talk about. I could talk about differences in Australian and British food probably for a whole episode. And I haven't forgotten about my bag. Here is the completed bag. That's how it goes, with the handles going one into the other. You can put like a stiffener in the base to make it stand up more. I quite like this one soft. I haven't put a lining in it, and I actually don't think it's going to need it. So there we are, very happy with that. And I'm going to say goodbye. This has been the longest video yet. I hope you haven't got bored. Take care and have a lovely week. Bye bye.